Welcome to the Michael Kouly Podcast on rethinking leadership. In these episodes, we will look at leadership with a fresh perspective and take your leadership effectiveness to the next level. For more information, go to KoulyInstitute.com and follow Michael's continuous learning insights on social media.
What does rethinking leadership mean? Rethinking leadership means going to the core of this word and understanding what it really means. What's the purpose of this word? Why is this word so important? What was meant by this word? What's so significant about it? And what's the spirit at the core of this word? What's there in its soul? I spent many years thinking about that, and you named the book and I've read it, the course, I've attended it. I mean, not all of them, but a considerable, a significant amount of these books and courses. And literally I just kept thinking about it. I thought about this word. Let me give you a little bit about the context. You know, part of my professional history is that I worked as a war journalist for Reuters for a number of years, covering some of the wars of the Middle East, particularly the war in Lebanon. Israel, Lebanon, fundamentalism, Iraq, the usual stories that you hear about the Middle East. And I have seen firsthand what war is about, what chaos is about, what absence of leadership is about. I have seen it. I have seen societies, businesses, families, people, entire countries paying the price of the absence of leadership. So all that created the context that made me go deeper into this word and ask myself, why is leadership so important? What's special about this word? Is it just another buzzword that has been occupying the minds of publishers, writers, people, the corporate world, the government, society? Is it just a buzzword, or is it a buzzword that will pass, or that will fade with time, or is it really an important word? And as I said, because I've seen the price of what happens to societies when there's no proper leadership, right? Underlying word proper. I have seen that. Yeah, I've seen blood spilled because of that. Entire economies collapsing, histories being, wiped out because of the chaos and the destruction. So I began a process of asking myself, what does all that mean? And why is leadership so important? That search took me to a strange place. And I say strange because it departed me from the word leadership. And it took me from just thinking about what this word means into the relation of this word with life itself. Because I saw when in the absence of leadership, what could happen to society. So the issue is not just an intellectual concept, we can, sit in a coffee shop and discuss it while sipping cappuccinos or cafe lattes. It's not that. This is a serious concept because people pay the price of the absence of leadership. Families pay the price of absence of leadership. Societies, the entire world could pay the price of the absence of leadership. So it took me to a deeper level of that, and that is to understand, to ask myself fundamental questions about life itself. And as I did that, I reached a very interesting conclusion that became the foundation of my understanding of the word, that became a foundation for the way that I make meaning of this word. So everything when I think about life now, it's clear to me. I'm not saying I have discovered absolute truth. I am not saying that. I'm just saying that in my mind, in the way that I construct the reality around me, I try to make sense of the world, it became clear to me how to think about these major issues. And the thing that gave me clarity is the following. I found that all life in all its forms, from the single, one cell animal to the more complex sort of plant, to the more complex animal, and to mammals, to human being, to societies, to families, to organizations, to small companies, to large organizations, to superpowers, to the entire to planet itself, the global community, to humanity itself. I've discovered the way I made sense of it is that all of these are driven by one main purpose, one main driver, one main force that is pushing them to go in a certain direction. And if you understand this force, if you understand this purpose, this driver, then things start to fall into place and you can make sense of life. And this force is the force or the purpose of survival and growth. To survive and to grow. And if you think of it, everything we do, let me talk about myself. Everything I do it hoping that it will lead in some way or form to my survival so that I stay alive, because I'm designed to do that, and to my growth. Everything I decide not to do, let's say I look at I'm in a certain situation and I look at certain options and decide I'm not going to do this option, I'm not going to speak, I'm not going to go, I'm not going to participate, I'm not going to become part of this, whatever that is. I also decide not to do this because in my mind it serves my survival in that context, in that moment, or growth in a better way. Now, it doesn't mean that I succeed in doing that. It doesn't mean that my plan or my strategy will succeed, because sometimes we miscalculate things. It might even backfire. But at least the driver to do that, right, is that it should make things better. It should serve my interest of survival or my agenda, my interest of growth in a better way. And you can apply the same thing to organizations, right? Every decision an organization makes with an assumption that it will help its survival and growth in a better way. Every decision a government makes, a king or a president or a prime minister or a head of state makes, these people make decisions on the assumption that it will help the survival and the growth of the society or the constituency that they serve, or at least their own survival and growth in their jobs or in their positions. So that's the assumption. The same thing with even microorganisms. I'm sure you've heard how the bacteria, or many kinds of bacteria, have been developing defense mechanisms against the antibiotics that people have been using over the past several decades, and that we need now a new set of antibiotics because they're not as effective as they used to. Now, what does that mean? It means these very small microscopic organisms have been driven by the force of survival, have been finding coping mechanism, adaptation mechanisms, so that this drug does not put an end to their survival. So from the microorganism to the largest company or to the largest country, to the superpowers, the main driving force is to survive and to grow. Now, what's the relationship between this and leadership? In my mind, that's the most sort of organic, direct, core relationship. Because what does leadership mean if leadership does not take care, is not interested in the survival and the growth, right, of people, of the survival and growth of organization, of countries? How could leadership have any meaning if leadership that I'm exercising in my company does not lead to the survival and the growth of my company. The same thing, if I'm a president or head of state, what could leadership mean, or how could leadership have any meaning if it's not about, doing whatever needs to be done so that the country that I'm running survives and grows. So what is leadership? What is leadership? At core, in my mind, leadership is the following. Leadership is about mobilizing people, groups, organizations, countries, you name them, right? But in the essence, they're people. Mobilizing people so that they can successfully face the challenges, the threats, the obstacles that are threatening their survival, and solve these problems and overcome them, and or capture opportunities that are there so that they can grow and prosper and thrive, or even create new opportunities for growth and for prosperity. So what's leadership? As I said, leadership is about mobilizing, and the word mobilizing here is very important. How do you mobilize people so that they can help themselves and others, specifically others, right, to survive and thrive and grow? Now, this is, of course, what we're talking about now is the core layer. This is at the core of the word. Now, how do we do that? There's an entire science about this. And I underline the word science because, as I said, leadership is about mobilizing people, right? The key word here is mobilization. Another key word is people. And people, we've been studying people for a long time. There's a complete science called psychology to study people. There's a complete science called sociology or anthropology to study people. So these are sciences that study people. So is leadership a science? Of course it's a science, because in essence, leadership is the science of mobilizing people whom we have been studying and trying to understand for years. And then this mobilization has its rules as per the fundamentals of these sciences, right? So that these people are mobilized, they move forward towards the purpose that we have mentioned, i.e., overcoming obstacles, threats, and solving problems, and also fulfilling, achieving growth and prosperity, and sort of uplifting or upgrading or improving their lifestyle and the way they live and their experience of life. When we talk about growth, of course, growth is a big subject. There are so many layers of growth. We can talk about that later in a different episode. But the point that I want to mention here is that leadership is a purpose-driven activity. Leadership is not a technique, to get people to follow you. It's much more than that. Leadership stems out of a very noble purpose. That's why leadership is super important. That's why leadership is very important. That's why, in my mind, the only hope we have, if there's any hope for us, comes from leadership, comes from exercising leadership, because it's only through leadership, right, we will find a way to overcome our challenges and obstacles, and we will find a way for humanity, for our countries, for our families, for our departments, our teams, our organizations, and even us individually, move forward in life. It's only through leadership that we can have a hope in a better life. That's why leadership is important. That's why it's very important to go to the core of what leadership means and put things in perspective. That's why, therefore, it's important to rethink leadership and start from the basics, and then take it to go from there and see how we can construct this concept, based on scientific concepts, scientific knowledge, rigorous research and thinking, so that this very important task, mission of leadership is fulfilled in its best form.
Thank you for listening to the Michael Kouly Podcast. Please visit KoulyInstitute.com and send us an email. We would love to hear your comments and thoughts on this episode. And remember to follow Michael's continuous learning insights on social media.